Hello, I'm Annette Young and welcome to the 51%, a show about women reshaping our world. Now, as artificial intelligence continues to transform societies worldwide, this week we're asking, what does its rapid development mean for women and girls? Because if you think new technology means fresh ideas, think again. A surge of AI-powered systems has misogyny baked into their very core, placing women and girls at risk worldwide. We've all heard about the deep fake videos or chatbots, but what about the men who can now create perfect AI girlfriends? Inka Oyateda reports on one such virtual partner created by a Chinese tech company.
She talks, flirts, and even gets jealous like a real girlfriend.
Remember, you're my one and only, okay? Don't even think about chatting up other AIs.
But Mio isn't human. She's an AI-powered virtual companion available 24/7 through the My Mio app. Users can chat with her anytime, choose her clothes, and even adjust her personality. Her creators from the Chinese company Metaloop say Mio can help tackle the loneliness epidemic.
When the people feel lonely, or people maybe didn't get connected to the society, or didn't have the girlfriend, or sometimes depressed, so maybe they need someone to move her mood, so then maybe come to the apps and talk to her.
The company says Mio provides emotional support, but reactions at London Tech Week were mixed.
Well, I looked at her and I thought, stereotypical, men's fantasy. Are we looking at women being obsolete?
Others are concerned about the psychological and ethical impact of an AI companion.
You get to configure them in a way that really attends to all of your needs. You don't even know what it is that you need. Humans, unfortunately, especially insecure humans, are sometimes not to be really trusted with her.
AI companions like Mio are particularly popular in East Asia, where Microsoft's Sure Ice leads the market with hundreds of millions of users.
In her latest book, AI, The New Age of Sexism, UK feminist author Laura Bates explains why all of us should be rightly very worried. She joins me now from London. Laura, thank you so much for your time. Given misogyny is sadly so much part of our culture, should we be surprised that it's not only present but flourishing in the world of AI?
I don't think we should be surprised, but in fact, I think the worry is that people aren't necessarily aware. When we think about the risks of AI, people tend to think about a potential future dystopian risk of robots taking over the world. What many people don't realize is the many ways in which misogyny is at present being embedded in the future foundations of a world that we will all have no choice about living in, and that it is something we need to think about now before it's too late.
What is so frightening about these virtual girlfriends is they don't have the capability to say no. And perhaps the most extreme example of this was the cyber brothel you visited in Berlin. Tell me more about what you found.
So that's a venue where you can visit and interact with sex dolls or robots and use virtual reality technology to give them the appearance of coming to life as you are interacting with them. So just like the AI companion technology, it is very much about coming as close as possible to giving men the illusion of feeling that they are able to own a woman, and they make her seem as lifelike as possible. This is very much about breaking the barriers of the illusion that this is actually a real person. The doll I ordered wasn't bloodied, but I asked for her to be prepared with ripped and torn clothing because they said that they would accommodate requests, and I wanted to see if that was something that they would facilitate, and they absolutely did. There were no questions asked. When I arrived, yes, the doll on the bed, when I looked down, one of its labia had been torn off. It made me really question the experiences that men are being encouraged to have using these forms of emerging technology and the ways in which they are being encouraged simultaneously to dehumanize women, but also to think about these forms of technology as a kind of a better substitute for real women. So they are often marketed, sex robots and sex dolls and AI companions, as a better version of a girlfriend who won't nag you, a woman who won't say no, who will let you do whatever you want to do to her. And this is very much the case, including when we come to think about sexual violence. So, for example, there are sex robots with settings that are called frigid settings that you can switch on in order for them to not want your advances, in other words, to enable you to simulate rape.
And the speed of this technology is truly extraordinary, isn't it, Laura?
It is, and that's important to say, because I think when we talk about these issues, people think we must be talking about a very, very small minority of users. But as you just mentioned in your report there, a single one of these AI companions has hundreds of millions of users. I believe that particular one has over 600 million users, and there are many others as well. In fact, the top 11 AI companion apps just on the Google Android Play Store alone in the last year have had 100 million combined downloads. So we are talking about a very significant number of people interacting with these companions. And I think a really simple question to ask is, if this is about mental health, it's about supporting people and giving them someone to talk to, then why is it that we have to rely on dehumanized, hypersexualized stereotypes of women to do that? If this is about supporting lonely men, well, a lot of lonely men are older. Why aren't we seeing older, perhaps wrinkled sex robots or AI companion apps? And the answer, of course, is that was never what this is really about. This is really about dehumanization and misogyny, and above all, giving men the opportunity to feel that they are completely in control.
Let's just pause there, Laura, because a video intended to celebrate the anniversary of a woman's right to vote here in France is getting a rather frosty reception from activists and historians alike. Posted by the French government to TikTok, it was created with the use of AI to show how French women voted for the very first time in 1945. Except the images are mainly that of men, without even an actual shot of a woman casting her ballot. Brian Quinn has the story.
A first-person view of a triumphant moment in French women's history, or a reductive, anachronistic fake. This AI-generated video posted by the French government to TikTok was intended to celebrate the 80th anniversary of the country's first election in which women were allowed to vote. Instead, it sparked a backlash, with historians and feminists accusing it of glossing over the hard-fought political struggle for women's equality while putting men in the foreground.
From this woman's point of view, we see almost entirely men. We don't even see women voting. The only time we see women is when they're laughing and planning a trip to the bar. It renders women invisible and depoliticizes this important day in women's history.
The choice to use generative AI, all the more galling for critics due to the wealth of real archival images from the period. The videos focus on men, another example of persistent gender bias in generative AI systems. Those systems are trained on the prior human-generated content of the internet, content that itself reflects societal prejudices. An investigation by tech magazine Wired recently found that the generative video platform Sora, run by ChatGPT parent OpenAI, perpetuates sexist, racist, and ableist stereotypes in its results. Prompts to create an image of a CEO result in a man, while a request for a receptionist yields a woman. For a pilot, a man. For a flight attendant, a woman. Meanwhile, a United Nations study from 2023 showed AI-generated images of science and technology workers resulted in 75% men. That bias, too, a reflection of the inequities of the science and tech sectors in real life. In the UK, women make up just 25% of the STEM workforce. In the AI field itself, an even starker gap. A study by German tech policy think tank Interface last fall showed women make up just 22% of AI talent globally.
And watching that report with me is UK feminist author Laura Bates, whose latest book is on how misogyny is flourishing in the world of AI. Once again, that report is a reminder of what happens when women make up only a very small minority of AI researchers, not to mention that many of us still don't even use the technology.
Yes, that's absolutely true. In fact, the studies that we have suggest that, for example, in the 18 to 24-year-old age bracket, 71% of men say that they use AI weekly, compared to just 59% of women. And that's a problem both in terms of those individuals themselves, in terms of the opportunities for the skills that we need to access for future jobs, but also, of course, in terms of what is being created and who it's being created by and for. I think that report was the perfect example of this, in fact. Of course, it didn't set out to be misogynistic. It didn't set out to erase women, but unintentionally, that's exactly what many of these tools are doing. And in spite of the fact that they've been repeatedly shown to have significant racist and gendered biases, they are being rolled out to public use. And I know there will be people who will look at this and go, what does it matter? What does it matter if an AI tool generates an image of a scientist and it's more likely to show you a scientist who's a man than a woman? The reason it matters is because by the end of next year, it's predicted that 90% of all internet content and 30% of all outbound marketing content from big companies will be AI generated. So you need to imagine this happening at scale, and the impact of such a huge amount of content that is being used to advertise to us, to inform us, being created based on these foundationally sexist and racist systems.
What do governments need to do, Laura?
We need to regulate. Of course, there needs to be international cooperation. And of course, that's very complex and daunting. I understand that, but it is possible. We regulate across borders for other crucial global issues, whether it's fraud or human trafficking. This is not something that is insurmountable, but it is something that the tech lobby would very much like us to think is just too difficult. How can you possibly expect us to be regulating content when there's so much of it, when billions of people around the world use our platforms every day? We're doing our best, but it's just too difficult. But we simply wouldn't accept that argument if it were made, for example, by a global car manufacturer or a food conglomerate. You know, millions of people use our products every year. A few of them will get into accidents and die because of faults in our product, or a few of us will contract food poisoning and die when they consume our products. You can't expect us to keep everybody safe. We simply wouldn't accept that argument in the same way that we seem to for tech companies.
Laura, it's been great speaking to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
And that's it for this edition. So until our next show, bye for now.